Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to our Peninsular City build in Minecraft. Not much building today. I think we're just going to chop some trees. We're going to chop some trees because no matter what we decide to build next, we are going to need materials. So, the public bath. I was thinking like a Roman bath. But we can also build Japanese baths. Let me just go, hold on. To Google image search, if you like to do that as well. Japanese public bath. A Sento. Or Centaur. Communal bathhouse. Which might work for us better because we have, if we use wood. Wait, it costs like $5? Because $5 to, well, it's 450 yen, so it's about $4.55 just to. Just to bath in public, which is odd. Yeah, maybe Japanese style, because then we can use wood. Because the Roman stuff, maybe the Romans had wooden stuff there. Maybe we'll come up with our own style, our own unique style. Anyway, let's start off with our favorite, the dark oak. And we'll work our way around all the tree types. Or should we go back to houses and/or shops? So the houses and shops, there's like smaller builds, and so there's less serious design going on with the smaller builds. Mostly just filling in space with the small houses. Whereas the bathhouse, we have to actually think a bit. So depending on how I feel when we get there, we'll decide what to build. So let me think of a topic to talk about, since we're not doing very much thinking while we chop trees. What should we talk about? What should we talk about? The thing is, I'm pre-recording these, so when I actually get to upload these, this will be like a long time from when I'm recording them. So I can't really talk about current events that much. What can we talk about? Games that have had a profound impact on me or you. But I'm talking, so I don't know what games have affected you. It's difficult to say. Like a lot of games, not that many games aim to have profound impact. Oh, let me just try this. That actually works. That's crazy. Games that have profound impact on people. This is a lot of dark oak. Wait, wow, hey, wow. Why are there so many dark oak saplings here? What is a game that has the thing is, games like Civilization, although, it's not an emotional impact because it's pretty much chess. Like Civilization is glorified chess. But just in terms of like the broad sweep of history, and those aren't exactly my words, I think I've read it somewhere before. But Civilization is about the broad sweep of history and human progress. Like you start off with a bunch of settlers and no technology. You barely have agriculture, and then you build a city and you research your way into through time, through the ages, until you reach space, if you ever get that far. I wonder if it has similar impact on other people, because the way I view time is like a little different from other people. Like I tend to be more patient, and so I don't view time as urgently. Like I don't really mind if things take years or even decades. Like that's just how I mean, if it takes that long, it takes that long. I don't know how many people have that sort of perspective. I mean, it's the kind of perspective that your bank manager tells you to have when you start investing money, stuff like that. Oh, if you want to invest your money, you need to look at 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Because, there's no way to make fast money in this business. You just have to, invest carefully. Stuff like that. And yeah. So, I'm not really into instant gratification. And so a game like Civilization does appeal to me because it's slow, it's long and slow, and if you kind of choose to play a slow game, you can, like, there's game settings. You can choose like how many turns a game is. I mean, you can spend dozens of hours per game. Just a long, slow game where you build up your empire. So I'm into that sort of thing. I don't know if it really has had a profound impact on me as such. But I'm also like kind of into history too. You know how like they say those who don't know the history are doomed to repeat it, which is kind of true. I mean, what they really mean is that if you don't learn from other people's mistakes, then you'll make the same mistakes. And history is really learning about other people's mistakes, and also other people's successes. But the successes are not as useful because time changes and technology changes and people's opinions change, and so you say, oh, the Roman Empire had a lot of success with their Roman legions. Well, that's not going to work today, is it? I guess some people still try. But, the last time somebody tried to conquer the world with a military was Hitler, and Hitler failed. Completely and utterly failed. And, I mean, he got around Europe a little bit. Oh, I'm running out of carrots, correct. He got around Europe a little bit and then tried to invade Russia, which seems to be a bad idea for anyone who tries, especially in winter. So, I mean, already I'm just talking about specific things in history, and I don't know if you know your history. Like, if you know your Napoleonic Wars, and if you know your Second World War. So I'm just talking about this stuff, and I'm just kind of assuming that you know what I'm talking about. Like, what is wrong with trying to invade Russia in winter. So yeah, so it's stuff like that. And I guess if you know your military history, then you wouldn't be as keen to go to war, because you would know that quite often war turns out poorly for everybody involved. Because war is difficult, right? You you can choose when a war starts. You can't really choose when or how a war ends. That's not always within your control. So stuff like that, like if you know your history, then you know that stuff. And Civilization is kind of good in that it introduces you to it. Although, you know, if you want to learn real history, you still have to read your history books, because Civilization is fiction, right? It's not like every game is a simulation and not really a real history. In that sense, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a game series that also has that sense of like epic scale of history. Although it's not a popular game in the English-speaking world. And to be honest, it's not a particularly good game in the Chinese or Japanese-speaking world either. it's a Japanese game. Well, it's made by a Japanese company. Let's put it that way. And it's set in a historical Chinese period where there was a civil war basically, and there was a lot of war and a lot of fighting. And the great thing about that particular period in time was that they kept a pretty good history log, and so then there's literally hundreds of historical characters. All of them have like particular backgrounds and personalities and what they did in history. So this particular moment in history was quite well recorded and also dramatized over the years in various works of fiction. So it's a bit of a goldmine for creative works if you're into Chinese military history from like 300 AD. There is an English version, I think, of the latest game. It's kind of expensive because they never go on sale, and I'm not even sure if it's all that playable. I keep wanting to try to play it, and even if I play a Chinese version, I'm trying to try and translate it to English for you to see if that works. I don't think it'll work very well. it's one of those games that I think is great for me, but I don't recommend anyone else play. The problem with those games is that it does get bogged down with the micromanagement. So when you start off and your faction is like 1 or 2 cities with like 5 or 10 generals, it's okay. I mean, just play turn after turn, that's fine. But if you are really successful, you end up with like dozens of cities and hundreds of generals, and you're like just going through every one of your generals every single turn, telling them what to do. And it does get bogged down quite a lot very quickly. Well, not very quickly, but comparatively, because the games are quite long too, so the games take forever. And eventually it gets bogged down with just a lot of control. And even the more fun... So the game, it's a game series, by the way, like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, except it's a strategy. It's been going on for quite a few years. I think there's like 15 or 16 or 17 games by now. And they're all a little bit different, but they're all kind of similar, which is funny. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to get to is it's got a sense of scale to it. It's got a sense of scale to it. And you play through like multiple generations. And then the balance of power will like shift over time, and But because it's like a war simulation, it like it counts resources, it counts people, like a popular population as resources, and then like, so one of the things, for example, like if you draft too many of your citizens into your army, then your cities become depopulated. And then the lower the population of your city, like the less tax income and the less harvest income you get. And so then it becomes more difficult later to build another army. So like you're trying to balance between your civilian development and your military development, right? And I found that sort of thing really interesting because it's in a lot of games you don't have to deal with resources, and even when you have to deal with resources, it's there are certain like shortcuts or simplifications that things take. Like if you play, well, I guess the latest SimCity tried to do it. Like if you play like SimCity or something, and you like pump water out of the ground doesn't run out of water. Except in the latest game, it kind of does. But the problem with that is that it's not very well explained. So in the real world, if you pump water out of the ground, so what happens is when it rains, water soaks into the ground, and there's water in the ground. The ground has a water table, which means like the level of water. And if you dig in the ground below the water table, then water starts just pouring into the hole that you've dug. And that's what a well is, right? A well is you dig a hole in the ground until you get under the water table, and then the water starts pooling in your hole, because that's where the water in the ground is, right? So if you start pumping out water, so the water gets there from rain, so the rain falls, it soaks into the ground, and it kind of filters down deep underground. But if you pump it back out faster than the rain replenishes it, then the water table in the ground gets lower and lower because you're drawing water out of the ground faster than it's being replenished by rain. And after a while, you don't have water anymore because you've pumped all of it out for whatever purpose, for drinking, for agriculture, whatever it is. And so when you play a game like SimCity, you have to supply water to people, and in some of the older games, for example, there's no water table, and so you just keep pumping it out of the ground. Like whenever you need water, you just kind of put a pump down and just draw water out, which it's not. That's not how it really works in the real world. So you don't really have to think about resource depletion, except when they do put it into the game, it's often not very well implemented. Or like, yeah, so the latest SimCity game actually has that. Like if you kind of put a water pump down, after a while the water's gone, right? And then you remove the pump, and you move it somewhere else because the water's gone. And I think after a while the water comes back, but the game doesn't, if I remember right, it doesn't actually have like any information on how quickly it replenishes, or like whether or not you're overdrawing the water.